a trip to yesterday, we take you to Detroit's Historical Museum, where you have a choice of starting at any one of the museum's 3 physical units, taking you back to 1701, bringing to life the dramatic, proud heritage that is Detroit's. We begin with a look at old Fort Wayne at the foot of Livernois and West Jefferson, Detroit's major surviving historical monument. The compound, begun in 1843, completed in 1849, gave Detroit border protection, a square, 4-pointed star fortress surrounded by a dry moat on a site that was once a major Indian camp and burial ground. Its high, thick brick wall is backed with even higher earthworks. Visitor entrance to the fort is by tunnel. The 6-inch thick oak doors and tunnel bricks are heavily scarred from the scraping of horse-drawn vehicles. The 4-story stone barracks endures even today as a structure of beauty and dignity. The stone and brick masonry work are among the finest examples of architecture of the period west of the Alleghenies. The ramparts hold mountings for cannon that never had to be placed because peace with Canada came without border strife. 15 acres of military history. This is Fort Wayne, a part of the Detroit Historical Museum. On the Detroit River at Belle Isle is the Marine Division of the Detroit Historical Museum. The Dawson Great Lakes Museum, opened since 1960, remembers its early beginnings on this same site. An old schooner, the J.T. Wing, first housed our marine collection. The last commercial sailing vessel on the Great Lakes, the Wing was beached to spend her glorious final years teaching the story of the lakes. Then her hull, plagued with dry rot, forced her fiery finish. Today, the story of the lakes is still told inside a proud, permanent shore home. The story begins with the dugout canoe, the first boat used on the Great Lakes in peace and war. Rugged and heavy, its seamless hull always without leakage. The lake story is told further in the world's largest collection of lake ship models, built to the same scale. Among the many, Walk in the Water, the first steamship on the upper lakes, plied between Detroit and Buffalo, going as far as Mackinac and Green Bay. The story of the lakes, yesterday and today, right on Detroit's busy waterway. At Woodward and Kirby, in the heart of the cultural center of the city, is the museum's main physical unit, dedicated July 4th, 1951, on the occasion of Detroit's 250th birthday. 3 identifying flags tell much of Detroit's past, beginning the story that exhibits bring to life inside the museum's display area. The Royal Banner of France is a reminder of the rule of the French, 1701 to 1760. The British banner, the Union flag of England and Scotland, flew over Fort Detroit from 1760 to 1796. The American flag unfurled officially over Detroit in 1796, when it was 15 stars, 15 stripes. The peoples of these flags and those from other parts of the world who followed, their struggles, their courage, their triumphs are reflected again and again inside the museum, defining the life and work of Detroiters, the growth and development of Detroit, the oldest city in mid-America. Detroit, the city that literally put the world on wheels. Inside are storytelling exhibits arranged in logical time and order to make Detroit history a living experience. Short-term changing exhibits are continually planned by the museum's curators, drawing on some 60,000 valued items to display less than 5% at any one time. This means that a Detroiter can never say he's done the museum. Whenever he visits, he finds both permanent and ever-changing exhibits stemming from 3 subject divisions: metropolitan services, living in a big city; social history, Detroiters at home; industrial history, Detroiters at work. Our industrial story begins with Detroit's first settlers, French from eastern Canada, who use hand tools, usually of wood, to make items for home use or to carry on a business. Handcraft production is followed also by the English and Yankee successors of the 1800s. In the mid-1800s, skilled workers make about $1 a day. Unskilled, 35 cents. The Civil War hastens the use of the machine tool. As a result, shops increase their production. Costs are lower, profits are higher. Goods are of better quality. Next comes industry with a minimum of hand labor, and the skilled worker is removed from mass manufacture. He makes only the tools, dies, patterns, and so on, which his unskilled co-worker uses. No one worker sees the product through from raw material to finished object. And Detroiters head toward mass production on the assembly line, the basis for a higher standard of living. What follows naturally are stenciled markings made in Detroit on goods known all over the world. A symbol of mass production that starts here, distinguishing our industrial history. Through the years, Detroiters at work have a direct bearing on our social history. Detroiters at home. We have a changing pattern of living standards dating back to the mid-1700s. The museum's life-size replica of a French habitant house reveals homemade furnishings with more than one function. A bench that opens into a hideaway bed. A tabletop that forms a chair. A musket in readiness for defense or hunting. A fireplace for cooking and heating. Simple, primitive living for peoples of French ancestry. In the Hall of Patriotism, alcoves furnished in the times of war years tell of home life first in colonial days when we are governed by both the French and British flags. Again, it's mere subsistence living, bare necessities living. The Civil War alcove is in the parlor manner when the flag had 34 stars and there were many patriotic gatherings. When James Moross signed up recruits at this desk in the Jefferson Avenue recruiting office. When the table was in the home of B.F.H. Witherell, Advocate General of the state of Michigan. When the armchair was used by the Reverend James D. Liggett, founder of the Liggett School. In the Room of Tradition, there's a treasure store of heirlooms from early Detroit families. Many of the family names today identify city landmarks, buildings, parks, streets, schools, such as Cass, Sheldon, Ford, Buell, Dibble, Tireman, Woodbridge, Witherell, Beaubien, Oakman, Compo, Divvy Bethune-Duffield. The museum streets of old Detroit are authentically reconstructed to form the framework of local history, inviting you first to revisit the years 1840 to 1850. Walks are wooden planks. Streets are cobblestones. Shops are inviting. The clothing emporium puts emphasis on furs, imported cashmeres, and vestings. Saving your money? The bank's at the end of the street. Depositors are considered solid citizens. Banking is a friendly transaction. Come along now to revisit Detroit streets of 1870. You can put into action a sidewalk music box that played long ago on Harson's Island. Walks are of cut stone. Streets are of cedar block. And horse troughs are big enough to sail boats in. Shops stay open long hours. Wages are low, but not so low as the prices of wares and the services. Coffee, 11.5 cents a pound, and while you wait grinding. Carpet stretchers, $1.25. Detroiters shop carefully for goods. They also shop for services with varying degrees of patience. Detroit streets hold many attractions. Something for everyone. Detroit streets in the 1870s, as fascinating today as in long ago yesterday. Metropolitan Services, what living in a city means, a subject division pioneered by our museum. The Hall of Citizenship reveals in part what city living means. It's giving recognition to people who have served their city in its full development, people who do honor to their city, people who give service in the line of dangerous duty. In the Hall of Metropolitan Services, the story of city living continues with classroom education. School in the 1860s. Emphasis is on the 3 R's. Reciting by classes takes place at the recitation bench. Littlest ones find the hornbook an aid to learning the numbers and letters. All grades together, studying and reciting in turn, disciplining as needed. And city living is also public transportation, getting Detroiters around town economically, dependably, beginning with the horse-drawn streetcar, progressing through the years to the PCC, the last word in urban transit vehicles, and diesel buses that replace our streetcars. And city living is railroading. The museum's model railroad dramatizes the development of rail transportation, bringing the outside world closer, changing our entire way of life. Railroading, bringing more travelers to our town, bringing in more goods from the east, providing a means of getting Detroit-made products to other parts of the country, increasing our wealth, making possible more homes, churches, schools. City living takes on true meaning in long-term exhibits in the museum's second floor Hall of Metropolitan Services. The Detroit How You Have Changed exhibit, a different kind of exhibit, reveals 260 years of Detroit in one broad sweep. The first years, Indian trade and stockaded settlement, when Detroit knew 3 governments. And here's how we first look on the map. A village on the river with 4 fortified corners, 200 feet square, a few homes, warehouses. American beginnings, 1805 to 1825. We rebuild after a devastating fire. Detroit becomes the capital of the Michigan Territory. Here's our size now. Our downtown streets are laid out after the pattern of the nation's capital in Washington. 1825 to 1852. The Erie Canal opens up Michigan for settlement. Detroit becomes the state capital and the commercial center of the lakes. Detroit really begins to grow. We're growing big. 1852 to 1865. And Detroit is connected with Chicago and New York by telegraph and railroad. Commerce is the main activity. Railroading is the largest business. And manufacturing begins. Drugs, stoves, railroad cars. And still we grow, extending back farther from the riverfront. 1865 to 1896. (1896 to 1918). 1918 to 1945. The Great Depression, arsenal of democracy. 1945 to 1961. We've grown this big. Progress in Detroit means many changes. We change our way of hauling freight from the East Coast in a wagon sturdy enough to ford streams to a paddle wheel steamer and a canal barge that let us benefit from the opening of the Erie Canal, to freight cars that travel swiftly across steel rails, even transport meat in refrigerated cars manufactured here. We change our way of getting about town, from horse cab, curtained if you please, and made in Detroit, to a closed automobile manufactured here in 1919, to jet flying from Detroit's Metropolitan Airport. Families once gathered around a Detroit-built organ. Later heard radio programs from the first scheduled station in the nation. That station, right here in Detroit. And there are other items no longer in the lives of Detroiters. Thank goodness. Detroit, how you have changed. Our museum is a living center of activity, cooperating with many agencies and groups, drawing Detroiters by the thousands for events that capture their particular cultural, educational, and recreational interests. Such a variety of events keeps the museum a living center always, never just a static spinning wheel in the corner display. In all, well over 700,000 visitors come here annually. Importantly, the museum's Christmas open house is awaited eagerly all about town. Much behind-the-scenes preparation takes place before the doors open wide to greet guests during the festival season. Preparations are made annually, joyously, by members of the Detroit Historical Society Guild and their families. One of the many ways they help develop the museum's program of community service. Holiday hustle and bustle is not always associated with a trip to a historical museum. But for Detroiters, it's a happy event each year. So is the museum's treasure of storytelling exhibits, many that change regularly on a 2-month basis. Because of this, one visit never covers completely what these halls of yesterday and today offer year after year. This truly is a living museum, all physical units, and old Fort Wayne, and the Marine Division on Belle Isle. All wonderful places to come back to again and again.